Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters, and as friends, quoting Brother Hamza. Apologies for the slight delay. We had some technical issues, but we are live now. We're just waiting for our guest to come on, and my co-host as well. I don't know where he's gone, but I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share this now, inshallah, and I want to interact with you guys, inshallah. So yes, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Sister Hamna, how are you? Do take today. I want to know, where are you texting from? So when you say salams or any comments, do tell us which country and city. It'd be very interesting, inshallah. So while we're live now, let's share the live, inshallah, so that other people can maybe possibly benefit. So give me 2 seconds, inshallah. Here we go. Sister Hamna is saying Fatma Sabah. Okay, you're tagging people, mashallah. Okay, alhamdulillah. So wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah Bakhtawar Nadeem. Thanks for coming on. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah Brother Hasnain. All the comments are all of a sudden they're jumping in. Sister Lubna from Egypt, mashallah. Sister Amna Shahid says salam. Getting a lot of salams, mashallah. Hasnain says, you made me wait 30 minutes. We made you wait, but not even a smiley, not even a lol. So are you angry? Okay, forgive you. Okay, so I know you're joking. Subhanallah. Anyway, I was waiting for long. So assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm from Philippines. MashaAllah, Sister Sophia Mjeen. So those of you coming on, today's show is with Brother Hud, mashallah. I hope he can come on. He had some technical issues, but I'm really, really hoping that he will come on and join us. Brother Asad Tapali, assalamu alaikum. Brother Asad from Leicester, good to see you on. Sister Kerry, so a lot of salam from Walid from France, mashallah. And you've reminded me, mashallah, jazakallah khair, for those of you, there's a channel called Jannah TV, mashallah, they're very active on Instagram. They had a lot of live sessions in Ramadan. So they shared this show, so barakallahu feek. And those of you who are French speaking, highly recommend the channel, inshallah. Maybe Hud will talk about that later. So while we wait for our guests, time is of the essence. And we should always make advance time. We have Brother Hud. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Yeah, alaikum salam. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem, no problem, Akhi. So I'm just getting to know the people, and I'm just saying salam. You can see the comments, mashallah. So today's the way it works, Brother Hud, and those of you who are coming online, this show, mashallah, since Ramadan has always been very interactive in terms of questions. So we've had a lot of questions, a lot of comments, although we had a certain topic. So for example, we covered topics like sincerity, characteristics of the du'at. We covered various different topics, but because we want to make it interactive, our philosophy of the show is that we're going to allow the people to ask their questions, because we believe when they ask their questions and if we can help them, then inshallah they'll become amazing callers to Allah. That's the main inshallah point. So what we're going to do is, right now, we're going to go into it. Hud, you have, mashallah, a French revert. Allahumma barik. You're very young. How old are you again? Can you tell me your age?
I'm 25 years old.
25, mashallah. So when I met you, you were 23. I think 2 years ago, 2018.
Yeah, I think so.
Subhanallah.
Okay, 23 or 22, something like that. It was in, mashallah. 3 years ago.
Alhamdulillah. Like and where are you right now? Where are you coming live from? Where exactly are you?
Right now I'm in Morocco. I'm living there. Yeah.
Oh, mashallah. Wow. Whereabouts? Which city?
Sorry?
Which city in Morocco?
In Oujda. It's in the east part of Morocco. It's actually it's very close to the Algerian border. I can see Algeria from my window. SubhanAllah.
Okay, mashallah, excellent, alhamdulillah. So, Akhi, I know you've been asked this before, but there's a lot of people who are listening to you the first time, and it's always inspiring when we hear a person's revert story. I'm not asking you to give a whole detailed one, but in just 5 minutes, inshallah, or even a bit more, 5 to 7 minutes, maybe a summary of how did you discover, what were you like before Islam? I would like to know, without the details, what was Hud like before Islam?
Okay.
How did you discover Islam? How did you come upon it? And inshallah, and then I'll ask you other questions from there, inshallah. Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, I come from an atheist family. And my family is atheist since a few generations, so it's not new in my family. It's not like some brothers that were raised Christian, then apostated from Christianity and became atheist. My parents were atheists, my grandparents as well, and so on and so forth. And probably because I'm from French, probably I had some ancestors being Christian, but it was not a big thing in my family.
Right.
And actually, in France, we have a movement, a social movement that happened in the 60s, I think, that is very close to neo-atheism in America, but it was quite before in France. And my father and mother are very, close to that movement, which means that, subhanAllah, I was raised with this kind of ideas, neo-atheistic ideas, which are we value truth, but we don't like traditions. A lot of skepticism towards tradition. We doubt traditions in general. We are intelligent people. We don't believe in myth like God and so on and so forth. So that was the environment in which I was raised, and I became quite.
Where in France, if you don't mind me asking? Born and bred.
I'm from France, Strasbourg, so the east part of France.
Okay.
Yeah, Strasbourg, in the border with Germany. And subhanAllah, I was raised in that environment, and I come from a quite, successful family, Alhamdulillah. So I was quite proud of that. I was proud of being an atheist, and I thought it was the only way to see the world. And because of that, I became very interested into debating a lot of theists. And subhanAllah, I entered school and had friends in school, and most of them were not very educated in religion. And
da'i for atheism. You were active atheist.
Yeah, yeah, we can say that, subhanAllah. And the thing is, it's true, like most of my friends were not very educated, most of my religious friends. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of Muslim friends at the time. Most of my religious friends were Christians or maybe Muslim, but very ignorant Muslim. So because of that, I became even more, sure of myself in my atheism. And subhanAllah, I just grew like that. But alhamdulillah, I kept being open-minded. And I think it's thanks to art, because I used to be an artist as well. And I loved art, yeah. And then, subhanAllah, sports, art, and many fields. I loved these fields, and I always try to become better. And when you are doing that, you are learning self-criticism as well. So I was still open-minded. I knew that, okay, I'm quite sure because of my past experience that atheism must be true, or at least, there is no good evidence for any religion, but still I'm open-minded, and I should be self-critic about myself. It's possible that I'm wrong. And subhanAllah, when I entered second year of high school, senior high school, I met a Muslim friend. And that's just blow my paradigm, because I just start discussing with him. And he just points to me the fact that I was ignorant about Islam. I was trying to debate Islam, but it's true, I never read properly about that religion. Right. And just said to me, have you read the Quran? And I said, no. And then he said to me, if you didn't read the Quran, how can you speak about Islam? First read the Quran and then speak about Islam. And I think it was true. It was very simple. It was fair. It was a fair argument for me. So I was like, okay, just give me a Quran, I'll read it, and then we'll debate, inshallah. And subhanAllah, I was quite surprised, because the day after that, subhanAllah, he just bring the Quran in school. So when I was in school, I was like sitting, he was sitting beside me, and just got the Quran from his bag and just gave it to me and said to me, okay, I know you don't believe in this book, but please be careful, it's important. And I was like, okay, I quite appreciate it. It was a nice gift for me, nice action. So I really took it seriously. I took the Quran. I remember I put it in the top of my bag because I didn't want the other book to crush.
Out of respect.
And then out of respect. I mean, it's a gift, and I didn't have hatred towards Islam and etc. So it made sense for me. Then I remember I just got home and I just did what I had to do. So I ate and I took shower, etc. And before sleeping, I just took the Quran and I just put it on my bed and I watched it. And I just wondered, I was like, this book changed the world. And I knew it. I didn't think it was from God, but I was still thinking. I was like, okay, this book, it's thousands years old and it changed the world. That's sure. And at least I can respect that because I didn't change the world myself. So that this book has accomplished something I didn't accomplish.
Good.
And I was quite, subhanAllah, I remember thinking, I was like, okay, let's read it. And if it's true, I'll follow it. And if it's false, I won't. And that's it. And I start opening it. And I was, subhanAllah, was very impressed because I always thought that it would be something like a law book, something like a civil code. I thought there would be Article 1, do that, Article 2, do that, and so on and so forth. But it was quite, it was impressive for me, subhanAllah. I was impressed with the style. And because I was so much into art myself, subhanAllah, it was moving me, subhanAllah, and I recognized that this book was something beyond human capacity. I mean, I felt it, I think, in my first reading. And I remember I was in my room thinking, and I was saying to myself, okay, I think that's true. I just read like Surah Baqarah, maybe the first lines, and in my head I was like, okay, that must be true. And if it's true, I think I will become a Muslim one day. So I thought like that. I was young. I was maybe 17 years old, or 16 years old. I was 16, I think. Yeah. And after that, subhanAllah, I was young, so I just put it on my shelf, and I thought to myself, yeah, but I'm still young. Let's live, let's live my life. Yeah. But because of that, subhanAllah, because of that action, Iman entered my heart, and it just changed the way I look at world. And after that, subhanAllah, I remember thinking a lot about many things and trying to implement some things, some rules of Islam in my life, subhanAllah. And it was like, subhanAllah, every time I was following commandment of God, God was giving me rewards. Yeah.
I can hear you, but your screen has gone fuzzy. It's a nice, beautiful colors, white, pink, and everything, but your face is gone.
Okay. It's fine in my screen. It's fine. I mean, I don't see nothing in my screen.
Okay.
I don't know why it's like that.
Yeah, it's.
Is it fine now?
Imran, can you say the same thing?
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Hood. Yeah, I can see the same thing. It's fuzzy. If you log back in, go out of the program and come back in, it should be fine, inshallah.
I'll try. Okay, let's do it.
Okay,
there you go. Perfect.
Oh, there we are.
It's back.
Alhamdulillah. Oh,
it's gone again.
Oh. It's all happening in this show today, brother.
It is all happening, isn't it? SubhanAllah.
And then I see there's some sort of thing behind Imran as well. People in his head down.
There was a thing. There was literally a thing behind me.
10 people who saw something behind Imran earlier. But anyway, okay.
Now we're good.
Only 4 still, mashallah. I know, back to 3. Are you with us?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yeah. Can you see me now?
Alhamdulillah, we can see. As you can see, brother, we've got he's joined us, mashallah.
Wa alaikum assalam. How's everyone? I'm cleaning up some coffee that's been just spilled on the table.
Yeah, we saw
as I'm trying to talk to you. How's things, brothers? You good? Sorry for being late. I was in a meeting with someone because something came up. So, subhanAllah. But better late than never, I guess.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Hud? How's things, bro?
Oh,
Brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very fine.
MashaAllah.
Barakallah fik.
so Akhi Hud, just to inshallah get into the show a bit more. So just if you can maybe skip to where you to the Shahada, inshallah. What was that last point? You read the Quran and Surah Baqarah, and then was it straight away you took the Shahada?
I mean, what happened basically, I started to implement many things about Islam in my life. And every time I was following Islam, good things were happening to me. And every time
Wow.
I wasn't following Islam, bad things were happening to me. And I just ended up like following Islam without being a Muslim. And at the end, I felt so hypocritical to follow Islam, to believe in Islam and not claim it, that I just ended up reverting basically a few years after that.
Excellent, bro. Excellent.
Yeah.
And you know, we as guys, last time we met in person was in IRA offices when we had this specialist course, that amazing 1 week. It was around a week, right? And it was beautiful. We met you. We met brothers from all over Europe, mashallah. But you know, our older brothers, I remember you clearly. Just the fact that you know, the way you describe it, you came from an atheist background, and your family was atheist. Your grandfather, your generation were all atheists from France, you know, and it's actually really inspiring. I remember that, especially young age. And then, mashallah, akhi, I remember you started seeking knowledge, because a lot of reverts, not a lot, but just from my own perception, a lot of reverts either they like to stick to themselves, they like to just keep themselves. They come to Islam, hamda, thank you, but I want to keep to myself. But one thing I remember about you sought knowledge, mashallah. You went out, and if you could just quickly, really summary in like 2 minutes, it's
gone again.
Your screen has gone fuzzy again, subhanallah.
Can you hear me still?
I can hear you. Yes. Hopefully.
Can you hear me still?
Yes. So I was saying, what was the first steps in terms of seeking knowledge? In just summarize in 2 minutes, inshallah. Seeking knowledge. How did you come? And then, if you can talk about, you've been studying rhetoric, and I really want to actually just go into that a bit more. So, how did you start seeking knowledge?
Okay.
What did you study? And then, what do you study in rhetoric, inshallah?
Okay, so like I pointed, before I was a Muslim, I was into arts and sports. And I always, every time I was doing something, I tried to improve and become good in the domain. I think it's just, I mean, it was obvious for me. If I become a Muslim, I need to be a proper Muslim, like in any field. I can't like try my best to become, I don't know, the best break dancer or something like that. But when it comes to Islam, I'm not doing the same efforts. It was not possible. So when I entered Islam, it was just a given for me. And I mean, after that, the reason why I seek knowledge as well is because I'm from a very atheist family. And as I say, my family is quite educated. So my family are the type of atheists that will go into great depth, something like Orientalists, theories, and so on and so forth. And I will just throw this kind of theory at you, right? So you need to learn if you want to live in this kind of environment. So I was kind of forced to do so. And I was like, okay, let's do it. If I'm forced, I have no choice now. I'm living with this kind of people, bringing all these shubuhats, etc. So let's learn Arabic. Let's learn Quran. Let's improve in this kind of fields. Now, when it comes to rhetoric, I'm a graduate in marketing and international marketing, and it was a part of my study, obviously, because marketing actually and rhetoric can be quite close, even though it's not the same, of course, but you have similarities in some parts. So yeah, I studied rhetoric in that regard, and after that, I'm personally loving philosophy as well. So I read a lot in philosophy. I learned a lot about epistemology, logic, philosophy of science, philosophy of mind. I love this topic as well. Philosophy of religion. When it comes to subhanallah, Deen, I went to Morocco actually to learn Arabic, so I'm trying to improve in Arabic as well. In Aqidah and this kind of field. That's the field I'm interested in.
Okay. We can't see you again, but I can still hear you, so I'll continue the question, inshallah. What I wanted to ask you is some of the subjects you talked about, very in depth, and we're talking university level, right? So in terms of rhetoric and other subjects, but especially rhetoric, could you quickly define for those who have never heard of this term what it is, really quickly, what it is, briefly, and more importantly, have you used it in your dawah? Because I know, mashallah, you've been very active with Jannah TV, mashallah, in Ramadan on the Instagram. And I did a shout out earlier, so I'll do it again, inshallah, because I've not seen many channels, French-speaking channels, doing the dawah on that level, mashallah. So this is really good to know that you're someone like that and yourself involved in that. So I know you've done a lot of work, social media, online. I don't know if you've made any videos, but I think you are going to make videos very soon. And I know you've done some street dawah, alhamdulillah, with the mercy guys, mercy to mankind or for mankind in Paris. So, which is always a unique thing, mashallah. I'm always excited and happy that a Riva brother is involved in street dawah. It's one of those things that they keep away from. So, do you think in your street dawah experience, have you used rhetoric? So, if you quickly define rhetoric, and how has it helped you in your dawah, in the streets or online, inshallah?
Okay, so rhetoric basically is the art of holding a discourse. It's basically the field that will ask the question about how a discourse can influence people, action, how a discourse can change someone's opinion. And it needs to be distinguished with a dialectic. A dialectic is the art of holding a discussion, a dialogue. Right. When rhetoric is about discourse, it's more about speech, public speaking, and these kind of things. So it's important to distinguish both, because both are based on different mechanisms. And if you don't distinguish both, you will end up sometimes doing awkward thing. The thing also we need to understand is rhetoric is a field that appeared in ancient Greece, in the city of Athena. And because in Athena was a very small democracy with very few citizens. And it was a city where by influencing people, you could influence political decision a lot. And it's in this context that this small group of rhetoricists appeared and developed all these tools to influence people, actions, and opinion. Now I prepared a few points actually about how I think rhetoric can influence da'wah, how we can use it in da'wah. I prepared 4 points. We'll try to be short, inshallah. So I think the first thing we can take from rhetoric is this distinction between to persuade someone and to convince someone. So basically in rhetoric, we will distinguish both, and to persuade someone is to work on someone's action. To convince a person is to work on someone's opinion. And both are distinguished actually, because both are based on different mechanisms. Opinion and action are based on different mechanisms. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I'm trying to concentrate.
Yeah. Then Alhamdulillah. So that's very important, because when it comes to Islam, belief is not just opinion based. It's not just knowledge. It's not just something intellectual, but it's as well something linked to action. There is a causal link to action. You can even say that a belief is defined by something that will cause action on someone. And if you don't have action in the person you are doing da'wah with, your da'wah is pointless, basically.
Yes.
Changing someone's opinion without changing someone's action is pointless. So
Otherwise,
we need to work on both. And I think
just an airy-fairy discussion, just a light discussion, and that's it. But yeah, okay, good point.
Yeah, that's very important actually. We need to understand that both are important. And if you want to analyze rhetoric in regards to da'wah, we need to analyze both. We need to learn how to convince a person and how to persuade a person. So that's my first point, and I will speak a little bit more about that later. My second point is about how discourse in rhetoric is problem-based, and I will explain what I mean by that. So in rhetoric, usually the basic discourse in rhetoric will have three parts, and the first part will try to make the audience understand that there is a problem. Basically, the audience have a problem, and any issue. You can take any issue. The second part will be about analyzing solutions, and the last part will be about trying to make the audience move, make an action, basically. And this first part is very important. I think we can take it from rhetoric, because a lot of times in Dawah discussion, it's like an intellectual game, basically. It's like you don't make the person understand that this is a serious matter, and this is something that is relevant for the person.
Right.
And usually in rhetoric, we'll make difference between, we use two mechanisms to make the person understand that there is a problem. We'll use quantitative mechanism and qualitative mechanism, and I'll explain. It's very simple. Let's take, for example, environments. You have a public, and you want the public to understand that there is an issue with climate change. If you want the public to understand quantitatively that there is a problem, maybe we'll quote some data. So we'll say maybe, I don't know, in the past century, half of the animals disappeared, basically, something like that. That will be quantitative. But if you want to make the person understand that there is a problem qualitatively, then you need to quote example, stories, descriptions. So maybe you can say to the audience, in 2 generations, your grandson won't know what's a lion, for example.
Right.
And the person will feel concerned by the example. So that's something we can use as well. Make the person understand that there is a problem in not following Islam.
Okay.
Yeah, to make the person understand that following Islam, the subject at end is very important. And this whole part about make the person understand that there is a problem, have usually 2 objectives in rhetoric. We may try to make the audience feel fear, so fearsome about this problem, and because of fear, the audience will act, and we can try to instigate hope in the audience. And subhanAllah, that's something that is in our tradition as well, because subhanAllah, in the Quran, every messengers came as advertisers and glad tidings, right? So that's something we can find in the Quran as well. And there is this famous narration with the birds, with the right wings being, so the comparison between faith and birds, and the right wings is hope, left wings is fear, and the head is love. So that's something that is important.
Brother Hud, before you continue, because you mentioned audience, and you mentioned the audience, so I want to come to the audience for a bit, because it's a show, inshallah, and we will come back to your points, bro, because we want to make it. But I just want to, before we come to some questions, I want to ask Imran what he thought of the points so far, if he was taking it all, inshallah.
Yeah, no, me and Hud did a live on epistemics a few weeks ago, and mashallah, Hud covered some of his thoughts on rhetoric and stuff, and we sort of talked about the Socratic method and how, you know, it's if anything, it's a Quranic method, because Allah asks questions, you know, and He mentions the hellfire and He mentions paradise, and He encourages you to avoid the pain and go towards the pleasure. And subhanAllah, it's because if you think about rhetoric, what mashallah, Hud has studied, the science of basically the science of engagement and discourse. You would realize that this is rhetoric is basically it's the principles that have been summarized of something that takes place naturally with human beings when we discuss things. And subhanAllah, like you said, the parallel with Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now mentions, first and foremost, there's a problem, right? Which is, you guys are deluded, you're sleeping, you were created for a purpose, to worship God. You're worried about running off to the dunya. The day of judgment is coming. You know, you're going to be accounted for your deeds. The problem has been highlighted, and it's very powerful. And that makes the person realize there's an issue, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shares the solution. And then the way Allah does that is in many cases, through questions. Gets us to reflect, gets us to think, gets us to ponder, encourages us to do this. And I'm sure Hud is going to go into a lot more detail as he discusses this. And I think one of the things we're going to take, and what Hud is going to encourage us to do as well in the dawah, is, and you'll notice, the brothers, mashallah, generally speaking, that are very successful in communicating the message of Islam are those who sometimes naturally have good rhetoric, because you can naturally be good at it, right? Although if you study it, you can get really good at it, and people that aren't good at it can develop those skills, and that's what's important. And I think what Hud is bringing to the plate here is something which is really missing from the dawah. So what I want people to do is, I know it may be a lot to take in initially when you hear about it the first time and all these principles. Wow, I've been because people think I've been talking all my life. I've been discussing and engaging with people all my life, but wow, there's a science to it, and it'll be engaging from that perspective, because now people learn. There's a way I can share the message of Islam in a way that not just I'm throwing out information, but I'm actually now communicating with a person and encouraging them to come to Islam. And I'm facilitating that. So it'll be very powerful, inshallah, to hear the rest of it, inshallah.
What I want to do is, the show, we are going to shift the discussion, but I want to make it personal as well, because like some brothers and sisters, this is the first time they listen to you. So Hud, if you don't mind, there's some questions for you as well, inshallah. Maybe off topic, but we will come back to the topic, inshallah, just to keep the show going. So Sister Noura has asked about your rebirth story. What is the missing part in you that you finally found in Islam, if there's anything? So I know there's maybe a few things, but was there anything that's missing within you that you found in Islam after you reverted?
So subhanallah, it was actually, I had several steps in my reversion. There was like phase, and subhanallah, the first phase, it can be surprising, but at first it's like I totally forgot what it was to be an atheist. Like in the first years, it's like I completely forgot what it was to be an atheist. I just became like believer, and it was so strange. It's like I lost memory, and after a few years, I started recalling a little bit, and I was shocked. I was like, was it me? And it's still hard sometimes to me to grasp how I was because of that. So yeah, that's the interesting parts. And I think what changed a lot is about tawakkul, basically, in putting my trust into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. I'm not very concerned now about dunya matter, about this life, subhanallah. I'm not very worried about anything. I'm just living my life, and I'm trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's for me the real sakina, the real how can I say, peace of mind and heart, subhanallah. Because really, it's sometimes it's even it's disturbing. I'm disturbed by the fact that I don't feel worries about life. Like, it's too much. I would like sometimes to worry more about life, subhanallah, but
you're a bit too.
It's very rare, subhanallah. Okay. So yeah, that's what changed a lot, subhanallah, I think.
Okay.
Thinking.
Brother Hasnain is asking, did you face any backlash from your family or social circle, and how did you deal with it? Did you deal with it with rhetoric, or how did you deal with it?
So I think I dealt with it with rhetoric, actually, because subhanallah, I had backlash at first. It was not something very hard, alhamdulillah. It was not like something that was critical, but still, it was still I had issues because of that. But alhamdulillah, the way I dealt with it was to not speak about Islam. And you can think it's counterintuitive, but the thing is, I felt my family was so emotional about that, but I felt it was not about discourse. It was not about discussing, about intellectualizing the issue. And I just understood that point. And I think it's between parents and son, there is a lot of very strong feelings. You need to keep that in mind. I mean, you have pride on your father. You have pride it's family, and family is very intimate, and usually with intimacy, it's difficult to be very intellectual, right? So the only thing I've done, I try to show the limits, how I was walking. So I try to show in which part of Islam I would not basically compromise, and in which part it was not an issue. And in any obligations, I was not compromising. But I was not trying to defend myself. I was just showing that I would not compromise, whatever. And I won't discuss about it. I will just leave like that. And on other issues, it was less critical. Then I was compromising. And that's how I've dealt with it. Alhamdulillah, it's worked very well, because nowadays, Alhamdulillah, I have a very good relation with my family. And my family is very respectful the way I'm practicing. I think it's because of that, because they understood where was the limits. Alhamdulillah, where was the limit? Of course, I was not being rude. I was not responding.
Have you? I'm sure you have. Have you given dawah to your parents, or have you tried to invite? And you must have tried.
So when it comes, of course. When it comes to my brothers, more. I mean, I had more like intellectual discussion with them.
Right.
When it comes to my father, I'm trying to be less intellectual, and the reason why is my father as well is very emotional about this kind of issues, and I can feel it, and so I don't think that's the solution when it comes to my father.
Fair enough.
Sometimes I'm trying to ask good questions, innocent questions, to slowly make him change his perspective. But I mean, that's the way I'm dealing with my father.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And I think I mean, Allah alam, at the end, Allah knows if it's the best solution for him. Because every person is different, right? So, but knowing my father, I think that's the best solution for him. Allah alam.
Okay, so Sister Syeda Neha is asking, and when you ask this question, maybe you can finish off your two other points you had. I think you covered two, right? So she's saying, how do you get your point across effectively and without being rude while engaging in dawah? So perhaps you can finish your 2 points and tie in with this question, inshallah.
Okay, so first of all, it depends of what you mean about being rude. I mean, it seems like subjective for many people. So for some people, being rude will be understood differently than other people. And that's where you need a lot of emotional intelligence with people. And for that, the best way to have it is to have a sincere discussion, not just intellectual discussion, but try to know the person. As well, I mean, contextual intelligence. So, I mean, if you lived in the country, and it's important to know the country you are living with, in, and to know the people you are doing da'wah with. It's important because there is a lot of cultural effects as well, a lot of cultural points to take into account as well. So for example, I mean, in France, I know how whole people think, behave. I know their history, how was France when they were young, and this kind of things. So you start to understand in which situation you can say this kind of thing, and in which situation you can say this kind of things. Now, I mean, the way I'm trying to do usually is to ask more questions. And so we spoke about the Socratic method. I try to ask more questions than giving answers. And for me, it's very important. And the thing is, when the person is answering for you, you can't be rude because the person is giving the answer, right? Or maybe the person will be rude against himself, but that won't be an issue, I think. So so sometimes asking more questions can be effective as well.
You know, I'll be very curious because I'm not sure how long you got a chance to do street dawah in France. I know it's not very easy. It's very difficult, right? You did it for a few months. You could say a few weeks, few months, or just one or two occasions.
Yeah, a few occasions, I would say, but I don't think that's the best approach for France. No, I tried it. I don't think that's the best approach, but
What-
maybe we can discuss about that later. I want to finish my 2 points,
Yes,
maybe.
please. Yeah,
Then
sure.
we can discuss about that later. Yeah.
Sure.
So the next thing I think we can take from rhetoric, and maybe you'll be surprised about that, but it's political aspects.
Oh.
And when I speak about political, I'm not speaking about modern view of political, like right wings, left wings, party, and these kind of things, but more like a large view of politics, which is having a vision, a societal vision, to having a movement. So people having different ideas about how we should live in societies and try to move toward that. And the thing is, when you are discussing with a person, especially if you ask the person to change or to act in a way, it's very important to have a clear project, a clear vision. You can say to a person, change, but you don't show him, a clear vision of why he should change, right? As well, when you have this kind of political vision of rhetoric, subhanallah, and da'wah, as well, you can invite the person you are doing da'wah with to become a part of a project and to be a member, to have a role in society, a role in a community. And this is very important because membership of a society is something crucial for a human being. And especially nowadays when there is a lot of social pressure against Islam. A lot of people, when they will think about Islam, they will think that it's not a good idea to become a Muslim because there is so much pressure, right? So if you don't show that the person have his role and his place in the Muslim community, maybe it can become difficult for the person to accept Islam as well. And if you look at the Prophet ﷺ, he used to give roles to his companion. This is very important. He used to give them khasa'is, which is specificities, and names, nicknames, etc. So if you take all the famous companion have nicknames, roles. So you have Abu Ubaid, which is the Amin of the Ummah, the trustworthy of the Ummah. You have Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, which is the as-Siddiq, right, which is the truthful. I don't know how to translate that. Anyway, you have Umar, which is al-Faruq. You have all these kinds of companions, and the Prophet ﷺ used to give them roles and indications and a clear project. And I think it's important as well in da'wah. And it doesn't have to translate into, like these all, grand ideas. Like it doesn't have to be ambitious, but still we need to have some part of that, I think, in our da'wah. And in that sense, I think Islam is, in a sense, political, in that sense, because Islam have a project for society, have a project to improve society. And I think it's important to frame da'wah in that way as well.
Yeah? To solve the problems of the world, to solve the problems of society. Islam has that.
Nadeem, I think Hud's making a very powerful point here, which is enrollment is key. Like, it's not only a case of, say, believe X and don't tell them why and don't get them involved in the process, because you're not giving them anything. Same with kids as well, bro. It's like when kids have questions or you want them to do something, you don't just tell them do this. You explain sometimes why. You give them the why and then enroll them in a process. And that's what is another powerful thing. Again, when it comes to new Muslim support, and this ties in with new Muslims, how many times do we see that someone takes Shahada, they become Muslim, and then after that initial embracing, and hugging and everything, and takbirs, that's it. They're gone, and no one takes care of them. No one makes them a part of society. And like you said, it could be as simple as inviting them to a circle, inviting them to a class, going and seeing them, taking them for a coffee, make them a part of the process. Yeah, absolutely. Very important, very powerful point, subhanAllah.
And as well, if you look at the second point, which is framing this into a problem perspective, so there is a problem, make the person understand that there is a problem, and then this third point about the political aspects of it, then the person starts understanding that there is an issue, we need to change a few things, or we need to find a solution at least, and then you end up discussing with that person, looking for a solution. So it's very different in this discussion than these kind of debates, this kind of fight types discussion, right? Because now you are agreeing on a problem, on an issue, and you are trying to find a solution, and it just ends up that Islam is the solution, right? Yeah. So it's very different, even psychologically speaking, when you are discussing that matter. As for my last points, I'll try to be short on that. So it's about emotion. Emotion is very important. I think it's lacking in Dawah. Now, obviously, emotion is important when it comes to persuasion. If you want to change people's action, it's very important. Actually, there is even some psychologists, I mean, almost majority of rhetoricists and psychologists agrees that it's not even possible to act without emotion. So neuroscientists would say that without emotion, you can't act. It's necessary for a person to take an action that there is emotion. And the less obvious point is about convincing as well. To convince a person sometimes is to work on emotion as well. So it's not unilateral. It's not there is opinion here, and this opinion will change your emotion. But sometimes it's the opposites. Sometimes it's not unilateral. It's very complicated, right? The relation between emotion and opinion is very complicated. And I think, for example, when we speak about God as a concept, a lot of times, subhanAllah, what happened with people directly when they start doing da'wah, they'll try to prove the truthfulness of the concepts. So they will try to prove the existence of God, for example, but they won't work on, for example, the understanding or the emotional link the person have with the concept of God, which is as well very important. Sometimes maybe it's even more important. So sometimes I would rather with a person correct his false ideas of what is Allah than proving that Allah exists and than giving any argument, because some people have such a false ideas of what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they will never accept any arguments, subhanallah. And I mean, it can seem weird to start a discussion, for example, speaking about God's attributes, God's names. Yes. But I think it's very effective. It's very effective, and it's lacking a lot, especially nowadays.
Because we discussed this last time. Remember last week we had a call about this, about using the names and attributes of Allah. And I remember you gave one example. Perhaps if you can give one example of an attribute of Allah that you have discussed in your dawah conversation. I don't know which one you use. I think you use a shukr or something. So if you could maybe elaborate.
Shakur.
Shakur, that's it, yeah.
So, Shakur is a name that means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is grateful. So basically what it means is when you are doing a good action, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is grateful for that action. When you are doing a good action, Allah is grateful. And I think it's very important, even especially nowadays, because we live in a society where a lot of people feel neglected. They feel like their action is not recognized, and they are acting vainly, especially atheists and nihilists, because there is no meaning to any of their action. So I think, for example, to say to a person, even a person that don't believe in God, just saying to the person that you know God is grateful of what you are doing, of the good action you are doing, I think it's very, very powerful.
Very powerful.
As well,
I want to use this.
Actions like, as well, I mean, attributes like Latif, which mean that basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more aware of what you are feeling than yourself. I think it's very powerful, because nowadays we live in a very individualistic societies. And what happens in this kind of society is that we feel all alone, even though we are surrounded by many people. We feel all alone, like in our lives. We feel like it's just me and that's it, right? I think it was less the case in traditional societies, but nowadays it's especially the case. A lot of people have this feeling. And when you make a person understand that God knows what the person is living, and he knows actually even better than himself is knowing himself, right? When you make the person understand the kind of thing, I mean, the person can't help but appreciate, at least conceptually, what God is. He can't help, right? And if really he wants evidences, he will ask it anyway, right?
Yeah.
He will ask it anyway. If you like the idea, he will try to look for evidences, right? What happens is you are trying to force evidences on people that don't like the idea and that don't want to find evidences.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you reverse the situation and you make the person like the concept, if you make the person understand that this concept you have of God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is something that is beautiful, something.
Yeah.
I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His attributes is the most
graceful,
the most
it's
benevolent, and so on. I mean, the person will want to look for evidences, right? So you are reversing the conversation by doing that.
Well, you reminded me, because we had a campaign. Imran remembers we had the campaign. No, I want to get KG. Remember Imran? How's it go? No good, no God.
Yeah, no God, no good.
No good.
Yep.
I always get it wrong way. And we had a really beautiful campaign. We had a booklet for that, 99 Names of Allah, in English. And we gave it at Leicester Square. We gave it out in the streets of London and other cities. And we had T-shirts. And I remember we had several conversations, because usually, mashallah, IRA and other organizations, when we do Dawah training, we're told to give certain way of training, right? We have this go-up style, and we have this like structured way, you know, just of God oneness. But we always say that this is one tool, there's many ways. And so a lot of brothers and sisters around the world are watching, maybe they've been attended training and maybe think I need to, this non-Muslim in front of me, I just need to just give him this God oneness revelation, then voila, as they say in French, voila, they'll take the shahada, right? But I remember and I fell into that, and I speak to a Hindu guy, a British English London Hindu, British Indian guy, and I said, look, can I let's look at the book. So we opened the booklet, and I remember Imran, one of your trips as well, you actually did open a booklet sometimes in the campaigns when we used to do like a live. You open a booklet randomly. I just read it, and his reaction was, he goes, "Wow, this is really interesting. I never." No,
bro, you know what it is, guys. SubhanAllah, what he's saying is, it just reminds me. Look, very few. If we're being very practical, a lot of the things people believe in, majority of the things people believe in, even the things we believe in, if we just do this with ourselves, everyone watching this right now, if you think about the things you believe in, most of those things are not based on arguments. Right? We don't believe in things based on arguments. Here is a deductive argument, or here is a logical. We believe in things for other reasons, and one of the main reasons is emotions. Is how does this thing impact me? How does this thing benefit me? In other words, how is this useful for me? If it's useful, then you accept it. It's almost like sometimes we see the truth of a thing through its utility, its usefulness, and other means, right? So pure reason and logic have their place, arguments have their place, but we have to realize, if most of the things we believe in as human beings are not based on arguments in and of themselves, just dry arguments, then why do we apply that always to our da'wah? We have to be a bit more broad in our thinking from that perspective. And like Hud said, why not? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And why not, for example, share the names and attributes of Allah? And that's why I believe the campaign we did, No God, No Good, was such a successful campaign, bro, because it changed the strategy. It went straight to the names of Allah, mentioned to people who the creator is, and let them relate with the names and attributes of God. You know, and that's what's powerful about it, subhanAllah.
Imran, welcome to Hud. Imran, there's a question for you specifically, Brother Hussain. He's saying, actually, question for all, but especially Brother Imran, especially because you're a special banda, right?
You're the most special thing that's happened to, mashallah, this live stream and my life right now, bro. Seeing your beautiful full moon face, mashallah, glowing on the screen is one of the most amazing things that's happened to me today.
I can take all this. Don't worry.
Nadeem Ashraf.
Yeah. Who is it? Hamza.
Sabur.
Give my salam. Tell him if he wants to come on the show, he has to apply. I'll send him an application.
Yeah, he's jealous.
If he wants to come on the show, he has to apply. He has special application. Right. Okay. Anyway, how to build confidence in an environment where they just look at you as an inferior Maulvi who is very noob. I'm not sure what he means by that. And that he's not much worried about his worldly matters. I mean, what do you understand by that question?
Well, yeah. So generally, what I get by it is, if there's perceptions that people have of you, for Maulvi, the term being used meaning someone that looks religious, generally speaking, and people like, nah, I don't want to listen to this person. I'm not interested. Which is the case.
Mullah, mullah, the word mullah.
Yeah,
French
yeah.
term. Yeah.
Yeah, so someone that looks, religious, but especially in the Indo-Pakistani, communities, it's seen as something that's negative sometimes as well. It's like, oh look, Molvi, like they'll refer to it as something derogatory, like this person, he's just this religious fanatic, forget him, I don't want to listen to him, type of thing. If that's the case, well then and you're involved in the da'wah and you know there's going to be a problem, your specific appearance, then maybe experiment with that, meaning within what's allowed, just change your appearance when you're going out and giving da'wah to people. If you know dressing like, wearing for brothers at least, wearing a shirt and trousers is going to remove that barrier, and you can do that, then why not do that? That's, the objective is that people come to Allah and worship Allah, not that you make a statement, right, which you don't have to make and which is a barrier. Yeah, so it's just be a bit flexible with stuff like that, as long as it's allowed, and it's as simple as that. And bro, especially from a Pakistan context, where on university campuses, and even here in the West, if you just a small tweak with the way you dress, and the way you carry yourself and the way you speak and relate to people, and you don't use formal language, you use sort of casual language, it makes a huge difference. People relate to you, they warm to you, they want to speak to you. So yeah, that's it. Simple as that. Inshallah.
Brother Hud, question for you.
Right.
Sister Amin is asking, so you are saying to us, you are telling us to discuss the attributes of Allah before giving evidences or presenting arguments. So there's an atheist in front of you, yeah, and they don't believe in a creator, and they don't believe in God. They could be a nihilist, however you pronounce it. Is it nihilist or nihilist? So I've heard both, by the way. It could be someone, who's completely even anti-Islam and an anti-theist. So are you, Imran?
That's the second time today.
I don't know if Sahel watching this. He's removed you from the show from Allah. Anyway, Hud. So yeah, someone who doesn't believe in God, but you're gonna talk about the attributes of God with him. Really? Over to you, bro.
So the thing is, I don't think it's per se the approach you need to use every time, right? I think it's very effective a lot of the time, because I think most of people are very emotional. Most people have issues, spiritual disease, and this kind of thing. So I think it's very effective most of the time. But I would not recommend having this kind of fixed ideas in doing da'wah at the first place. I mean, when you're doing da'wah, you should not have like one straight line of argumentation and just stick with it all the time. I mean, it's like subhanAllah, da'wah is a human walk. You can't replicate it. You can't make it like a chain walk, right? Especially, I mean, in the society we live, right? Because in the society we live, people are used to be treated as numbers. So I think if you want to make your da'wah effective, you will gain to make it more, I mean, dedicated to the person you are speaking with.
Absolutely. We're not
people, I mean,
we're human beings, right?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Many people feel neglected. Many people feel, I mean, there is an issue in the society. There is a big societal crisis in the West with that. Many people feel neglected, feel alone, feel that their life have no values. And when someone just try to understand his history, his views, I mean, a lot of people like it. Sometimes I just like to start the conversation with simple question like, I don't know. If, let's say, for example, it's an atheist and it's an arrogant atheist. The example that was given before. Sometimes I just like to ask the person, why should I be an atheist? In your opinion, something very casual like that, and start to explore his thinking. Or maybe even start ask personal questions sometimes. I mean, you need to be careful with that, but you can try. I mean, you can try to notice. I don't know if the person have a jersey of I don't know what team, but if you have a jersey of a football team, maybe you can start to speak with that. Try to subhanallah. Actually, I went to Hyde Park once, and just once in my life, right? In when I was in UK. And I was discussing with that guy, subhanAllah, with that whole person. And I start to discuss and he wanted to go into a very intellectual discussion with me, and I start going into this discussion. But when I noticed that this person wasn't really, I mean, in many things, and there was some points where I thought he was being irrational. I just changed topic, and I spoke about what he was doing in life. I asked advice. I said I was French. I mean, it's pretty obvious I'm French when I'm speaking, but I spoke about French, asked if he went to France, and I started discussing about that because I wanted to go deeper in the discussion. And I think a lot of times we need to do that. And maybe the issue as well in many du'at, we are used to have everything directly, and we are not used to wait anymore. We don't like what takes time, but da'wah can take a lot of time actually. I think the best du'at are the ones that know how to take time with people. They know that takes time, and they like to engage in long-term relationship with the person that are doing da'wah with. I think they may be the most successful du'ats, because at the end, that's when you can truly make impacts into the person's life, right?
Okay, Alhamdulillah. We'll make this the last question, inshallah. We'll wrap up because it's an hour now.
Yeah.
And it is called the Dawah Hour. So Ayman is saying, and this is for both of you, so inshallah we'll make this answers very, very brief, inshallah. How can we persuade someone to see things our way? So, like, you are coming from an atheist family, an atheist background, and I guess there are a lot of people who misunderstand Islam, who have a kind of Islamophobia. So how do you talk to them and let them encourage to listen to your points? So yeah, especially France. Maybe I've got a wrong perception, but what I've heard from France, it's a very difficult crowd, very tough crowd, as you say. Yeah, I mean in London it's tough as well, but France it seems much tougher because the Muslim community is not as active, is not as open as the British Muslim community, for example. So yeah, if someone's Islamophobic, how do you persuade them to see things your way, Hud? And then Imran, you can finish that as well, inshallah.
I think the most important point in this kind of situations, there is two ways, basically. The first way would be to find the common grounds, if there is some common grounds, and then try to develop from the common grounds. So maybe to make the person understand that we want at the end, I mean, the same thing. Maybe we want truth, maybe we want happiness, maybe we want these kind of things, but we just disagree because maybe on some points we were mistaken. And the second approach can use is to change the narrative. And you can finish in clash, but usually as well when you have this kind of incommensurable views, right? So the person have a totally different view than yours. Yeah. Usually it's a matter of narrative as well. So you need to try to analyze what is the narrative of the person and try to flip it completely. And I like that way. I think it's also very important. Actually, I had many points I could use today. There is so many things we can take from rhetoric. I had to choose. And I think if I was able to, I mean, if I had time to choose more, I would have spoken more about narrative because it's very important as well.
No, it's very interesting. Narrative. Maybe we can do it on live on some other channel, inshallah. We'll go through it. Imran, do you want to? If you either this question or there's another one. This one goes. So how you've been in London, Imran? You've been to France. How do you deal with people who are Islamophobic? How do you get out of them, bro? Have you had those?
I think one thing is to implement a lot of what Hud said today, because the points that he's made are points which are very important to keep in mind in the da'wah, which is, some of the things I took from Hud today is number one, really pay attention to people and what they say, respond adequately with wisdom, be sincere, also ask questions, power of questions, and have emotional intelligence, know when to pull back, know when to ease off the pressure. Don't keep pushing an idea down if they're not accepting it. If there's resistance, realize that there may be something else going on and address that particular thing, right? Because remember, we're trying to really win hearts and minds, and we're not going to do that if we just keep pushing our points. Remember, the dawah is not about the shahadas. The dawah is not about shahadas. It's about, in the most effective and beautiful way possible, conveying the message to the best of your ability. That's all you can do. And that means, if it means studying rhetoric and the way Hud's putting it, bro, maybe Hud can do a short course on it for us, because he's because remember, when you study this, what Hud's, mashallah, he's simplified it for us, and he's given us key principles and points. If you go into the study of it generally, you will realize there's a lot of fluff there as well, and there's a lot of stuff that will confuse you as well. So what he's done is phenomenal. So maybe take these points, maybe Hud can put something together as far as a course is concerned or something, just to take the main points of rhetoric and share them with us and teach them how to do it. I think that'd be powerful. And yeah, just be honest, be sincere, and really try to be there, be empathetic towards the person you're speaking to. That's it.
No, definitely. And we'll end there. And before ending, Sister Noura says something Arabic, so I would like to test Hud's Arabic. Can you read that, Brother Hud? Ma ala Rasul al-balagh al-balagh.
ما على الرسول إلا البلاغ.
That
Usually
French.
there is
I just want to hear that.
It's a verse. ما على الرسول إلا البلاغ إلا البلاغ المبين. البلاغ المبين. There is another verse as well in Surah Neha. فهل على الرسول إلا البلاغ المبين. So there is a few.
MashaAllah, bro.
Like
Excellent.
Basically, it means that the only obligation on the messenger is to convey, but we need to view it in regards to other verses as well, like وَدْعُوا إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ in Surah Nahl as well. Invites to the way of your Lord بالحكمة, with wisdom, and موعظة الحسنة, which is I don't know. You'll translate it.
Yeah, beautiful
preaching. Me. I mean,
beautiful preaching.
Yeah, mashallah.
Okay, brothers, we'll end it there, inshallah, because hours more than. There's a few other questions, but we'll try and remember some note for next time. But Hud, we can't see you again, but we can hear you. So we'll just say goodbye. So Jazakallah, Brother Imran.
Barakallah fik.
And inshallah, until the next show is going to be 2 weeks time from now, fortnightly. Brothers and sisters, do share this with your contacts. Maybe the benefit of this, that we went in a bit some points. We discussed a few different things, inshallah. And until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah from me and these guys.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.